Great, we're live.
Whoa, that's exciting. Hello.
Hello and welcome. Today I'm talking to Catherine Wolfe about presenting skills.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for coming over.
So excited to be here. So, Catherine, would you like to introduce yourself, please, those who don't know you?
Yes, of course. My name is Catherine Wolfe and I run Pukka Presenting, and that is a presenter training company. I've been doing it since 2003. And in fact, I know Sandra because I worked at the University of Bedfordshire with Sandra's husband, Anthony, and I was a senior lecturer there in media performance, excuse me, for 12 years, as well as running the TV production course. Prior to that, I was a TV director trained at the BBC. So I've had a long career in broadcasting and training people in front of and behind the camera.
Great, yes, and now you work at City Lit in London, is that right? And so, yeah.
Yes, I run open courses in TV presenter training at the City Lit, which is in Covent Garden, and at the Actors Centre, also in Covent Garden. And these are open courses for anybody. It doesn't matter what background you come from. And I teach a whole range of different courses there, from absolute beginners to vlogging, and then more specific like shopping channel and children's. So there's something for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And Catherine's also written 2 amazing books. So which one's first? This one first, wasn't it?
The green one.
The green one.
Yes, very climate friendly. So the green one is really for absolute beginners. It's called So You Want to Be a TV Presenter, published by Nick Hearn. And this is if you know nothing about TV presenting at all, literally how to start. And it's just my teaching notes. It's the kind of stuff that people would hear when I give my face-to-face lessons, or if I run courses. So it's like a handbook of everything that I would teach for absolute beginners. And then this one, the TV Presenter's Career Handbook, is, well, when you've done your training and you want to launch yourself, how do you do that? How do you turn your TV presenting skills into a career? And this is a different publisher, it's Focal Press.
Great, thank you. I remember, was it this one when you published this one, and Anthony came to your...
I had a book launch at the Actors Centre. Yeah.
So exciting. I couldn't go because I had a little baby at the time. I can't remember which one. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about how to talk to a camera, how to do video, also how to speak when you're in front of an audience, and also a little bit about how to get into TV if you're hoping to be invited as a presenter or an expert on the screen.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll do a question and answer session right at the end, so we're not kind of constantly sort of interrupting ourselves. And so keep putting your questions in if you have any, and then we'll just run through them at the end.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
great. So should I take this off you?
Yeah, sure.
So let's start with how to talk to a camera, the basics then.
Okay, absolute basics. So, absolute basics. You've put your camera up in front of you and you need to talk to it. I mean, to be honest, we talk to cameras a lot more than we used to with Skype and communications through business and family and social media. People are often walking around the streets talking to their phones, so it can't be that hard, right? But for some people, there's still a barrier. So I just want you to remember these key things. Don't think of it as a camera, think of it as a person. So imagine your favourite person, your best friend, a typical viewer, or if you're a nutritionist, a typical client, somebody who you're offering advice to. And please just erase all thoughts that you're talking to a camera and imagine you're talking to a real person, because that's number one. We're human beings, we talk to people. So just imagine you're talking to a person. And then I want you to look at the camera lens, because the lens are like the windows of the soul, and when you talk to somebody, you talk to their eyes. So I want you to talk directly to that camera lens and communicate with that person through the lens. It's no good looking around the room, because sometimes we do that when we just talk in everyday life. We can get away with it in everyday life because we're in the same space. Mm-hmm. But when you're not in the same space, you have to use that portal, as it were, that lens to talk through. And That's another thing I really wanted to check with you. Where is the lens on your?
I was just trying to work it out. I'm looking
your
at
phone
you now
because I don't have my glasses on.
It's here.
I've been talking
you
to
can't
that.
really see it.
I'm talking to the top bit of the lens. So if that's not working, then let me know. Talk to that lens. Look at that lens, but don't stare at it. And imagine you're talking to somebody's eyes. And that's why, if you're recording yourself, get that phone, your lens, on your eye line. Now, this one is a little bit low for us today, but actually, if you're on the eye line, it's the best angle for everybody. You've got to be yourself. You can't pretend to be anything but. You are who you are, and you've got to feel comfortable in your own skin. But it's you on a good day. You with just a little bit more energy, you the host of a dinner party. Because you've got to, again, reach through the camera to find the people on the other side. And think about the language you use. It's not hello everyone, hello boys and girls, or hello ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen is fine when you're in a space with your audience, of course. But when you're not in the same space as them and you're talking through the camera, the chances are your viewers are going to be watching you on a one-to-one basis, on their phone, in their lunch hour, on a tube journey, at home, with their headphones on, maybe with one other person. So do talk to them as singular people. That means using the word you rather than hello everybody. And the same goes for radio and podcasting, because you've got one listener. That listener will be with their headphones on or doing the ironing or in the shower. And it's those words that draw people in. So hello, thank you for joining me. I've got a great show for you lined up today. I've got lots to talk to you about. And that will rein people in.
It's that connection, isn't it?
Yeah. So those are the really key things.
Yeah, I did. We've done this chat before, and I have realised since that I listened to somebody's podcast that I really enjoy listening to, but the presenter starts every episode with hello everyone. Great, and it really does kind of cut off that initial...
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument nowadays that if you're building up an online community, some people will say hello everyone because you kind of feel like you're gathering everyone in, but how are they viewing it? They're not all in one space, they're in their own spaces. So talk to them as individuals, and then they will relate to you as an individual, and you'll have that connection.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about where to look, how to address the group or how to address the camera. What about what to wear?
Right. Well, look at us. Colour would be best, but I think Sandra's wearing a beautiful blue dress which works so well with her eyes, and I'm cheating. I've got a bit of sparkle in my Lurex here, but colour is good. Avoid jet black, avoid bright white, because it's very hard for the camera to expose for them with your skin tone. The camera exposure might go wild with the white, and you then have to sort of compensate the exposure, which will affect the skin tone. So those are extremes. It's best avoided. And also, black is quite draining of energy. Whereas if you were to wear a block colour, a primary colour, a warm colour, reds, aubergines, oranges, greens, blues, they really zing, because we're talking video here. It's not radio, it's the visual that matters. And if you were to simply just put on different clothes and take snapshots of yourself, I bet you'll find the ones where you're wearing the warmer colours seem to have more warmth in them. Just a little thing, the camera doesn't like little spots and herringbones and tiny little checks and tiny patterns. It has a kind of strobing thing going on within its electronics. So avoid little patterns. Also big patterns, big busyness and big earrings and stuff, because obviously they're very distracting. That said, there's always, a rule to be broken, and you will find some people who have really larger than life characters, amazing personalities, with wearing, as it were, all the wrong things on television, and they look fantastic. But these are some guidelines which I think you could try, and if you don't even have to spend a lot of money, you can just get a range of different tops, because mostly television is waist upwards. So range of different coloured tops and maybe a couple of jackets.
And what about makeup then? So I have one of my best friends is a makeup artist, and she always, whenever I'm doing a photo shoot or I'm on camera in some description, she just puts so much makeup on, because I feel like it's a lot because I'm not used to it. So I put a little bit of foundation on today, which I don't normally wear because I knew we were doing this. But what are your kind of tips on how, if you're doing your own makeup?
Well, I think you look great.
Thank you.
It's groomed, it's made up, but it's natural. And I think that's the thing to go for. It is true that video's a bit unforgiving. It's quite harsh. And it can also make you a bit bleached out. So especially if you're using lights, yes, I would wear makeup. I would look super groomed. Definition around the eyes, would have some colour on the lips. Mostly people watching this might be aiming for the Facebook Live or Instagram or social media type stuff viewed on a phone. But what would happen if people were viewing your content on a 65-inch plasma screen like we've got over there, which my husband bought in order to watch the Cricket World Cup? Everything would be magnified, warts and all. Yeah. So do go for makeup, and it will anyway give you more confidence and make you feel more groomed. And as I keep saying, television is a visual art, so you need to think about what the visuals look like. It's not just what you say and how you say it, it's also how you look. And this, it really doesn't matter if you are tall, petite, overweight, underweight, you perceive yourself to be wrinkly or whatever. Not interested in that. It's all about personality, but it is about being groomed and looking like someone could invite you over for dinner. They just
take care of you.
You
take
just
care of yourself,
look nice.
Because as nutritionists, we do need to kind of have
I'm sure you
some
all,
type of appearance or
I'm sure you all look
illusion to uphold.
I'm sure you all look absolutely wonderful, and you practice what you preach, and you're going to be glowing. But even if you have a glowing skin and you don't need any foundation on a day-to-day basis, you might need some for television.
Okay. And what to do with kind of your head or your hands? Do you need to try and stay more still?
Well, look, we're quite restricted by this framing, and that makes the point that television is within a frame. So less is more. You don't need to use your hands, really. You don't need to do big body gestures. Just be absolutely normal and relaxed, but be aware that, if I speak to you from over here, I've gone.
Yeah, we are actually sitting really near each other, which is not obvious on screen, but we're sort of scrunched up on a tiny part of this big sofa.
So look at a newsreader. They don't need to use their hands. They can't use their hands. It would be completely wrong to gesticulate. They don't really use a lot of expression in their face because it would be wrong to connect with that story in that way emotionally. It's all in the voice and in the tone. So you can do a lot with your voice, you can do a lot with the way in which you speak, and you don't need to do too much else.
Okay, and so let's talk about speaking then, because I sometimes when I listen back to myself, I think I'm so slow. I can't believe people actually listen to the end, because I'm just umming and ahhing and speaking slowly, and I bore myself, but it's me. And so, but what are the sort of things that you need to bear in mind?
Okay. Well, clear speech is number one. It doesn't matter where you come from in the country. It doesn't matter what accent you have or if you're international, but people need to be able to understand you. If you don't speak clearly enough, then there are lots of exercises you can do and courses you can go on. One exercise I really like is when you take a pen and you put it in your mouth like a horse's bit. And I've got a video example of this on my IGTV if you want to take a look. This forces your tongue and lips and mouth and jaw to work harder. And you can take a passage, read it, put the pencil or pen in your mouth like a horse's bit horizontally, and force yourself to say everything really, really clearly, and then take the pencil away, and you'll find miraculously it is clearer. And why is that? It's because we've just stopped being so lazy and we're using our jaws and muscles and lips and tongue as we should do. Tongue twisters are really good as well. I'm just noticing this great blob of sunshine on me. There we go. Tongue twisters are really, really good. She stood on the steps of Burgess's fish sauce shop, inexplicably mimicking him hiccuping and amicably welcoming him in. And just pronounce every single syllable and every vowel really clearly. Overdo it so that you can just rein it back in for normal speech. Reading Dylan Thomas is a really good one, Under Milk Wood, because of all of the poetic phrases and the amazing descriptions. Really learn to use your voice. Mm-hmm. It's your instrument, and like an instrument, it must be practiced.
You know, I sometimes practice when I read to the kids at night, because, you know, I find myself sometimes just reading mindlessly, and I think I don't even notice what I read, but sometimes if I really kind of try and put that effort in, you know, the kids don't care. Like if I'm sort of, you know, they're not going to judge me, but it's a good time to practice, isn't it?
It is, and a lot of people use I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by this sunlight coming in. I hope it's not obliterating too much. A lot of people use bedtime stories as a good way to practice. If you feel that your voice is sort of on one note, for example, and likely to be a bit monotonous, use those bedtime stories as a chance to really practice silly voices, high voices, low voices, and use the full range of your voice and don't sit on one note.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I do that a lot, and it's possibly because I'm Swedish as well, and our, you know, the way we speak is different.
Yeah, of course.
Intonation is quite important, isn't it? So if you want to come across as somebody who knows what you're talking about, would you kind of end a sentence with "this is how it is," as opposed to questioning endings? How do you sort of begin to?
You definitely do not want to be going up at the end of a sentence, because then it sounds like everything is a question.
And you're not sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very Australian. But it doesn't give you much gravitas.
No. Oh, you mentioned gravitas. Shall I pull this book book out that you very kindly showed me? That's a really good...
Yes, it's a really good read. Yeah, I love Gravitas by Caroline Goyder, and she is a voice coach. Just trying to get out of the sunlight. Can you see how it's obliterating? Caroline Goyder is a very well-trained voice and public speaking coach, and I love this book, Gravitas. In order to have gravitas in the way in which you put across your message, she's got this really memorable phrase, which is you need to have a mixture of knowledge, passion, and purpose. And as long as you don't have any anxiety in there, you will have gravitas. So what does that mean? I mean, I immediately thought of David Attenborough. And in fact, Caroline then went on to describe David Attenborough in her following chapter. So I thought, yeah, I've got it. I understand her concept. So gravitas then, the three elements. If you have knowledge, which you do have because you have your qualifications, your expertise, passion, so that means enthusiasm and the desire to communicate it, and purpose. So what is the aim? So say with David Attenborough, I mean, his aim now is to really awaken us all to Extinction Rebellion and the climate change catastrophe. So if you have all of those three, you will have more gravitas, which means authority. If you lack one of those three, you're not going to have the gravitas. So, for example, if you don't have the knowledge, well, then your speech and your public talks are going to be very lightweight and waffly, and you know, why are you doing them? If you don't have the passion, then you're going to be boring. And if you don't have the purpose, well, then you know what's the point? What are you aiming for? So, can you think of having those three elements in what you're incorporating into the content and the way in which you deliver your content, and that will help give you a lot more authority.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, so there was that gravitas, it's called gravitas. I think that's really important because we want to come across as, you know, obviously we do know what we're talking about, but when you're worried or when you're anxious, you start to get that imposter syndrome.
Well, there's another really good book there called How to Own the Room. It's funny, but women in particular suffer from something called imposter syndrome, which is oh, I don't really deserve to be here kind of thoughts, negative thoughts. And there's this little inner critic sitting on your shoulder the whole time, sort of no in your ear, telling you why you shouldn't be doing this or how bad you are. And we've really got to chuck that away. It's completely negative and it's not going to do you any favours, and it's not true. So you have your experience, your qualifications, your expertise, your practitioner experience, your life experience. You have masses to give. And you need to keep remembering that people want to hear what you've got to say. People have a problem and you can help them overcome it. So How to Own the Room by Viv Groskop is another go-to book of mine. These are such easy reads. You could just read them on a train journey. And Viv takes famous ladies, for example, Oprah, Obama, and analyses what is it about the way in which they communicate that gives them that amazing voice that we all latch onto, and their speeches, and how do they do that. There's some really wonderful takeaway little nuggets of gold in this book. I love it when Viv says how to be more grounded. Now this might sound a bit weird, but honestly go with it, it does work. Number one is imagine your brain is in your stomach. So really close your eyes and get your brain into your tummy. What is this doing? It's grounding you before you go on stage or before you do a performance. Because very often when we get very nervous, all these thoughts are flying around in our head and we just can't focus. Now, if you take your brain and put it in your tummy and just imagine that it's just much more lower, it's going to give you more of a sense of being centered and grounded. The other one is to imagine that you're breathing through your feet. Again, it sounds weird, but honestly it works. I've tried it with students. Imagine your nostrils are in the soles of your feet. Again, I'm going to close my eyes, just going to breathe in through my feet. It is incredibly grounding, and it works if you have insomnia as well. Again, what's it doing? It's taking all of the focus away from your cerebral and getting you just more grounded, centered, and calmer. And sorting out your breathing. Breathing is the key to so many areas when it comes to presenting in public, talking to a camera, giving a talk in front of people. Because the first thing to go is our breathing. When we're in a fight or flight scenario, it's just the way we are. We're human beings and we're running away from something that we're scared of.
But also, when you're talking all the time, it's quite hard to talk a lot and remember to breathe.
Right, yes. So you need good fuel tanks, and the fuel tanks come from breathing from your diaphragm, breathing down there. Once you breathe from up here, you're going to be much more Marilyn Monroe and breathy.
Right.
And you won't have the resonance and the grounding that you need to give yourself authority. So by breathing from down here, you're going to slow down your breathing, which is good, but you're going to have more power. So if you're on stage and you don't have a microphone, you need to be able to reach the back of the room, but you don't want to shout. If you shout, you'll strain your voice and you won't be booked again because you'll have a sore throat. And more importantly, you won't have a rich voice because you'll be straining and it will grate on people's ears. So there's lots of exercises you can do to really build up this whole fuel tank that you have down here. If you just wind back to a newborn baby, how they fill the room with their cries.
That's true.
And it comes from their diaphragm, from their belly. They can just, the whole thing explodes, doesn't it, from their lungs. As we grow older, we kind of acquire bad habits, or things get in the way, or we become nervous or inhibited.
Or we want to maybe hold our tummy in because we've got a dress that's
whatever. And we lose that ability to just let it all go. But really, all of us have loads of power from down here. How do you think an opera singer can break a chandelier and sing, in the old days that didn't have any microphones, across an orchestra and reach the back of the amphitheatre? It's just through training. It's a massive set of muscles. So lots of breathing exercises we can do, but I think the first thing is to work out where your breathing should be, which is by placing a hand under your ribs and breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth and allow this whole area to expand. So just breathing in through the nose. You can lie on the floor and you can put a weight, a sports weight, on your tummy and literally watch it rise and fall. And that's the area that you need to be using, not shoulders going up and down.
And do you kind of speak on an out breath?
Yes.
And then take a pause?
Yes. You speak on when you exhale.
Yeah.
And when you exhale. It's a muscle memory thing you can build up. So the first thing to do is to get the breathing in the right place. And then as you breathe in, start to make a sound on the exhale. So you breathe in and breathe out with a sound. Just like let it all go. And you will soon associate letting it all go and being relaxed with making a sound. And then you can make that sound more meaningful. And you build up from there.
We do this a lot in Kundalini yoga.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
quite a good practice, I suppose. Or you could go and see a voice coach.
Yes, yeah, there are a gazillion numbers of voice coaches and voice courses around, and I recommend the City Lit because I work there delivering open courses, and their voice coaches are head of voice from various theatre schools, or they've all had serious training in the top theatre schools. And in fact, I still do voice training there myself because actors, dancers, musicians, whoever, you still benefit from daily practice or weekly just reminders of how to do things to keep your skills sharp.
And feedback as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. And just a really quick setup tips, just in case anyone's wondering, how do I even set up before I start?
Yeah, sure. Setting up your camera.
Yeah.
Well, camera, daylight, framing, tripod are the simplest things to bear in mind. So first of all, you've got to know what platform you're going on: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, because that will denote whether it's got to be portrait or landscape, and also how long your videos are going to be, literally from 15 seconds to an hour, depending on which platform you land up on. So then place the camera accordingly. There's no end of different adapters and grips you can get for literally a few pounds on Amazon, where you can attach your phone to a tripod of some sort. Don't try to balance it on the nearest bookshelf. It's going to be at the wrong height and you won't be able to adjust it, and it should be steady. So there's no end of different grips, lightweight tripods, heavier weight tripods that you can use. You can also get little remotes, so you don't even have to lean forward to turn the thing on and off. You just press a little button in your hand and it switches on and off. Personally, I use daylight. I mean, although one can struggle sometimes with severe sunlight.
It's moved, hasn't it?
It's moved and it's fine now, although I'm quite nicely lit on one side. Once you start getting into artificial lighting, then that can create other issues, and you need to have a little bit of training. But there's plenty out there. I would say look on YouTube for the best tutorials, and again, there's lots of little courses you can go on nowadays. You don't have to publish everything you've recorded. You can have 20 goes at home, delete them all, and then do one that you're happy with. The important thing is to record, to get used to recording. I would say do a video diary every evening and just get used to talking to the camera, and then play them back. And you can play them back on a bigger screen, on your laptop or on your telly, and watch what's going on. You need to look at the eyes in particular. Are the eyes dead, or have they got light behind the eyes? Have they got warmth? Have you got warmth in your face? And if you like it, great. If you don't like it, delete, start again.
For me, actually, I think live is easier, because then I know I don't get a second go and I put much more effort into it.
Okay. Yeah.
When I have to, so my husband's he'll film me sometimes, and I just can't do it properly because he's there and kind of annoying me, and I can't remember what I'm supposed to say, and it's not important for me to remember because it's not live. Yeah. Whereas if it's live, I just kind of I'm more Switched on, I think.
Personally, I think live is a really good practice to have in your mind the whole time, whether it's live or not. Because if you eventually develop your skills and you land up on television, then to imagine it's live is always the best idea, because what you don't want is to get into the habit of thinking, oh, I can do it again, or oh, let's just stop halfway through, it's not very good.
Yeah.
Because you won't get that chance on television. So imagining it's live means you will dig yourself out of those holes. And we're all human. And I was listening to Radio 4 News yesterday, and the news broadcaster made a couple of errors and just corrected herself straight away. Professional. The worst thing you can do is make an error and then point at it or make a funny face, because then we're all going to notice the error a lot more. So to just be human, to recognise we make mistakes, to dig yourself out of those mistakes really, really quickly, to keep broadcasting is by far the best habit to get into.
I think so too, and I think if you're thinking I'm going to make it perfect and I can't put it out unless it's completely perfect, you're never going to get that shot, are you? That's completely perfect from beginning to end.
No.
You did mention, on Instagram, depending on if you're doing an IGTV or a feed post or a story post or whatever, they're all different lengths.
Yeah.
So we've got a document that we'll post that, so you'll know if you've got 15 seconds, 1 minute, 10 minutes, whatever. So I'm going to post that separately. But that was a really good tip as well. Now, how do you know then how to actually structure your...
How to start.
To start.
Okay. Yeah, so you've set up your camera and you've got your daylight and your tripod. How do you start? Well, before you even get to the point of setting up the camera, you've got to know what you're going to talk about. What is the content of the day? What's the aim of this particular video? Is it to entertain, to inspire, to educate, to empower? What are you aiming to do? You need to know that. That goes back to the Caroline Goyder, doesn't it? It goes back to what's your purpose. So do know in your mind what you want to do. And you don't need to write a script and memorize it. That would be the wrong way to go about it, because television is conversational. So don't try and remember. Just know that you have a structure, beginning, middle, end. The beginning should be something to break the ice. It can be as simple as, hello and welcome, thank you for joining me. Or today's topic is. And the middle, if you need to have little bullet points, then write them on a little cue card, a postcard. You see this on Graham Norton, Jonathan Ross. They don't read everything from an autocue screen, and they don't remember everything in their head. Sometimes they have a little aide-memoire, just some bullet points. Again, don't be tempted to read them, because that'll take your outline down. Just a quick glance and then you're back on track. And the ending, well, this could be a recap of what you've just said, or here are the 3 main points again. Or it could be a circular argument, which is good. If you start off by saying, so today we're going to be talking about breakfast. Is it important? Do we have time for it anymore? And therefore in your conclusion, you can use those same phrases to bring it full circle, and you can say, well, we've looked at the research, and there are 3 key areas of research that dictate you really should have a good breakfast, and it should consist of this, this and this. And so my argument today is, yeah, we really do need a good breakfast. Enjoy. And if you bring it full circle, it kind of rounds it off nicely and gives you a nice structure. And then you could say something like, see you next time, hope you'll join me, or feel free to send me any of your questions, or DM if you have any queries. Thank you so much and goodbye. And leave it on a nice big up, positive note. And never reveal on your face if it went a bit wrong, if you're not happy with anything, because that's going to destroy the performance. Remember, it is a bit of a performance. It is you, yourself, but it's a bit of a heightened version of you. It's you performing well. Yeah. So do end on an upbeat, not, well, I hope that was all right. Goodbye, thanks.
Yeah.
Where's the off button?
So how do we, are there any tips and tricks in terms of how to actually engage the audience so that they keep watching and that they maybe start interacting a bit more with you if you're doing a live video?
Yeah, I would keep your audience in mind, because you're doing it for the audience. So keep asking them questions. Keep checking that they're okay. Do they want to, have anything repeated? Is there anything that you haven't covered? Are there any questions that they'd like? And just keep that conversation going. And as they converse with you, imagine, that it's this two-way, because it is a two-way. They're just not in the same room as you. And so you need to keep reining them in.
I sometimes find that when I do webinars, so I do webinar teachings, I will say, type in the chat box if you are, if this is you. Do you feel like X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Let me know.
So a quick straw poll.
Yeah, quick straw poll or whatever, and then people kind of, or even as I'm waiting for people to join, instead of just sitting there waffling, I'm like, where are you tuning in from today?
Yeah.
Are you a nutritionist? Are you this? Are you that? So people sort of start to.
Yeah, but I mean, that's excellent. And it sort of leads me on to what would you do in a live situation as well, because if you are giving a talk in a clinic or to a group of people who are interested in your area, then you would do exactly the same as people are walking in and taking off their coats and settling down. Try to remove that barrier between you and them. So, hello, where have you come from today? Is it still raining outside, or have you had a long journey? Come in, take a seat. Welcome them in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously when we're talking to camera, we're looking at the camera, we're talking to one person, our friend, or perhaps the ideal client that we're hoping to, connect with. When you've got lots and lots of people in front of you in a room, where do you look?
Right, that's a really good point. Engage with your audience. If you are with a large group of people, say a church hall, and you've got a couple of hundred people who've come to hear your talk that evening, or a community centre, whatever. Don't ignore any of the audience, and the way to engage with them is to look at them in small groups. So the small group at the front on the left, you can talk to them for a few seconds, and then the small group at the back on the left for a few seconds, and then over there. And you could always do an S shape with your eyes as you sort of start there, and then you go to the back, and then you come back down to the front, and then you wiggle your way through the groups of people in the audience, looking at them for long enough to connect, but not too long, or else you're ignoring everyone else and you're kind of staring at them, which is a bit weird. But don't be a butterfly. Don't just flit your eye line from one to another, because then that will look shifty. It doesn't give you enough kind of authority. You can't ignore them. You can't just talk into kind of middle space distance, because then you're not connecting with anybody. And you do need to look at them, because they give you your feedback. Are they yawning? Are they coughing? Are they shifting? Are they looking at their watches? Or are they really on your journey with you, and you're taking them along, and you have to connect with them to know what's going on? If it's a small group, say you're in a clinic and you have maybe a dozen people who've come along one evening to hear your expertise, then it's easier, because you don't need to spread your eye line across such a large space. But the same rule would apply. Let's look at that couple in the front, and then, those two at the back, and then those in the front. But don't stare at them for too long, because they'll get uncomfortable. It's a judgment thing. But again, don't look at the floor. Don't look at your notes the whole time, and don't just stare into middle distance, because that's not connecting with anyone.
My pet hate is when I go to lectures and the lecturer talks to their PowerPoint the whole time.
Yeah. Well, if you have a PowerPoint, that's fine. You might have lots of statistics and graphs and info on it. Great. But as Sandra said, we don't want to see the back of your head, and it's boring to read exactly what's on the slide. And people in the audience will have read that way before you've got to the end of it. So you need to keep that engagement going with the audience. Put up your slides. Pictures say 1,000 words. So if you can put up pictures, then you can talk about the pictures and don't have too much information on each slide because it's overkill. And, you know, you'd be better off giving them a handout at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do you keep an audience engaged who's in the room then? What do you do if you see that people are sort of getting their phones out and they're kind of looking away?
Well, again, I would engage with them. And we did a lot of this at university where you have students in a lecture theatre and some are on it and some are not with it at all. Throw it back out to the audience, get them involved. You could say something like, I don't know about you, but, or I don't know what you would do in this situation, or you could ask a question. You know, how would you feel if? So it could be a rhetorical question or it could be a genuine question to try to elicit some response. Or you can, again, a judgment thing, by looking at the audience. If you feel they've had enough of that topic, move on. And you can just say, so if there are no more questions on this, let's move on to the next topic and just keep it moving. Maybe you need to crank up the pace a little bit, or, you know, have a tea break.
Have a tea break, yeah. Or what about kind of quite shocking facts, or not shocking facts, but, you know, statistics that maybe are a bit kind of, you know, did you know?
Jolt them to their senses, So, but it boils down to the same thing, which is reading the audience and knowing what they are thinking.
I quite often actually will ask people to put their phones away and pay attention at the start. Is that okay? Or because I notice now even in meetings people bring their phone to a meeting. Is that offensive, or is it kind of okay to say, you know, I would like your full attention for the next 30 minutes?
I think it's your game and you call the shots. I would respect somebody on stage if they said, I'd be very grateful if you could all put your phones away. We did try various types of approach to this at university, where students' phones are surgically applied to their hands and they don't leave them. But some people genuinely write notes on their phones nowadays, and you know there is that element to it.
Or they're sharing your talk on Instagram.
Right, yeah, exactly. I think it's up to you to see what you are comfortable with, but you're in the driving seat. And there may be some people in the audience who are irritated by others who've got phones. I don't know. I don't think there's one answer to that.
No. Yeah. Well, hopefully people will have come to your talk because they're interested in what you have to say, and they're not kind of university students who are dragged there because they have to, or, you know, there's some element of...
Yeah, they're adults, they're motivated, they've taken the time, and I think that what's important is that you're in the driving seat, as I said, and if you're more comfortable with people not looking at their phones, then say so.
Yeah, okay. We did have a question about how to maintain focus when you're doing a talk. So are there any tips and tricks on how to stay focused?
That's an interesting one. I think a lot of it is down to the planning and the preparation beforehand. Know what you want to say and what point you want to get across, and keep, you know, sticking to that direction of travel. And also, I mean, I don't know if people lose focus because maybe they lack confidence or they get nervous, but some of the tips we've already talked about, you know, looking at the audience and seeing it, connecting with it, is going to help with confidence. And breathing will help keep you focused as well.
I think sometimes also when you're in that situation and once you're on that stage, bless you,
excuse me,
it does focus you.
Yes.
Even if you haven't felt focused before. But I like to always do a 3-minute kind of breathing, or just something to just leave the day behind and just kind of not think about
there's a transition
what's happening after.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Not thinking about the next thing you're going to say, but just focus on...
Be in the moment. You've got to be very in the moment so you can live that moment properly and not be worried about what's happening next, and not listen to the little critic on your shoulder saying, well, that didn't go very well, or that joke didn't work. And then just to focus. I mean, some people, again, like Caroline Goyder, the author of Gravitas, she would say, take a moment to do some mindfulness, for example, or some meditation. The current voice teacher I was working with at City Lit said that she used to rush into the BBC studios and have to go live on air to say something very significant, such as, "You are watching BBC One, it is 6 o'clock, and here is the news with Peter Sissons." It would have to come out absolutely perfectly for the first time. And she said there's a transition between rushing into the studio and going live on air. And for her, it was, her name's Alice Moss, by the way, for her, it was doing specific little tongue twisters to sort of get herself warmed up. And she would say, "Mamminy, meminy, miminy, mominy, mumminy, mamminy, meminy, miminy, mominy, mumminy," and just kind of get herself sorted, which is just the A, E, I, O, U. It's just the vowels. And just waking up the mouth and just whatever works for you. But yeah, there is a transition between kind of rushing to the venue and or getting ready and then being on, as it were. So I think that will probably help focus as well, if you could think about that transition moment and how you ground yourself there.
Be on time and make sure you're not kind of
Yeah.
stuck in traffic. And so if we don't have a PowerPoint presentation, how do we maintain interest and engagement? That was another question that came.
I think you've really got to believe in your own subject matter, and people have taken the time to leave their homes and come and listen to you, or to set aside some time in their day to view your video, and have confidence that what you have learned, your expertise, is currency. It's why people want to listen to you. So it is about confidence, and even if you don't feel that very confident, you've got to put on that air of confidence until you've done enough of them that you feel confident, and just be focused on your planning beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think sometimes we don't want to have that crutch unnecessarily. I suppose if you're doing a talk in a church hall, do you even need to have such a polished presentation, or is it better if you're actually connecting with those people?
Yeah, you have to connect. I think that a sort of halfway crutch is if you don't have a PowerPoint or anything, learn the beginning, learn the ending, and just have little bullet points on a card as the structure for the stuff in the middle, which you can refer to. Of course, you want to learn the opening because you don't want to be reading to people when they're first looking at you. So hello and welcome. It's it's a cold, wet Friday evening, and I'm so grateful that you've all taken the time to come here. So for the next hour, let's just explore the notion of male infertility. Great, sorted. Now you can go through your meat and two veg, as it were, in the middle, and then you will have learnt the ending. And the ending might incorporate something that you've learnt on this journey from Q&A with your current audience, so that you can include that and say, well, it's been riveting. I've been so honoured to spend the past hour with you. We've learnt so much about the male perspective and about the male emotions that go along with this condition. So I hope you'll join me next month for the next talk, which will be on the female infertility issues. And meanwhile, if you want to look on my website or join me for a conversation, I'd be very, very pleased to hear from you. Thank you so much, and good evening. And know that you're going to wrap it up, and just have your bullet points and just be super confident. They've taken time. They want to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah, and again, so in terms of moving on camera, we said less is more, but I went to an education thing at school the other day it was a maths teacher teaching parents how to help their children with maths, and it was quite interesting because the teacher was walking from one end of the room to the other like a ping pong, and I was so distracted, and I thought, why is he walking over there? Why is he going? And he just obviously didn't know that he was doing it. But again, should you stand behind the podium, or should you kind of walk around a bit, or?
Well, again, no rules. You'll find people who do both, and they're, both styles are utterly riveting in the right hands. The important thing is to be conversational, natural, and relaxed, and be aware of your body language. So I used to go to a meeting every year where the same speaker would have his hand in his pocket and he'd be jangling his keys. Oh, I don't know what that message means.
Oh gosh, low battery, never mind.
And the jangling of the keys and the coins was super irritating, and I wanted to, throttle him by the end. Equally, some people who stand too straight behind a podium are a bit restricted.
Mm-hmm.
I think personally a little bit of movement is fine.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, but there's no need to pace up and down the whole length of the school hall, because that is boring and repetitive. So look at your audience, but don't feel you have to be rooted to the spot, but at the same time don't overmove, and be aware of your body language. So some people, I've seen it happen in the courses I've been doing recently, some people, as you put them in a situation in which they feel out of their comfort zone, what do they start doing? Fidgeting. These itches, these little ticks come in.
This is
or hair, or whatever.
Yeah, confidence, isn't it?
So
touching your neck.
Resist the urge to scratch, to fiddle, and just keep your hands low. Keep them just gently clasped. Don't need to use them really.
Yeah.
And just keep looking at the audience and be warm, light behind the eyes.
Okay, great tips. And so let's talk briefly about how to get into TV then. If you're somebody who actually wants to be an expert, I was going to say expert witness, that's not right, is it?
Guest
expert on a TV show or TV presenter. And what are the things that researchers or producers are looking for?
Well, you've said it in your own intro, expertise. So you have expertise. That is gold dust. You know, how many wannabe presenters are there? You know, gorgeous, blonde hair, blue-eyed, but what have they got to say? So you have expertise, that's half the battle. Now you need to be searchable. So if a TV researcher is typing in keywords, then you want your name to be visible on the first page of a Google search, say, to be known for your expertise. Because if you're not searchable, no one's going to know you exist. How do you become searchable? Well, get yourself known in your field, whether it be magazines, print, radio, podcasting, blogging, website, journals, local radio is a really good one, community radio is a really good one. Phone up, talk about the subject of the day. Be very current with your knowledge. Don't be left behind with your research. I'm sure you won't be, because you're all very current and you're learning, and you know your qualifications speak volumes. Be able to talk about what's on people's minds that very day, what's in the newspapers, because that's how TV and radio work. They work very close to the wire. I have literally been phoned up 1 hour before and asked to go on the radio that morning about an issue. Presenter-led issue, you know, did you see what they said, or did you see what they were wearing? Well, I've got to know. And then you're halfway there. There are some sites you can upload your expertise to. If you're a woman, you can go to the Woman's Room. I think it's the Women's Room, and I think it's .org, but Sandra will look that up and put it up. And that's where you can, for free, upload your own keywords, your areas of research. And that is one place where researchers will go to find new experts. But I think a lot of it has to be self-generated. You've got to be quite good at creating opportunities and creating your own luck here. You can write to TV companies, of course, nothing to stop you doing that. But it's a bit of trying to, you know, pin in a haystack. How do you know who's actually been commissioned? Who's got a new series, whether they're happy with their current presenter, whether they're looking.
We used to have, when we worked in TV, that's how I met my husband, so I used to work in TV, and we used to have a dummy email address, and it was like Claire Hobbs, and you'd phone, you know, people would phone up reception and say, who can I send my show reel to? We used to have these cassettes, and people were running around with cassettes. We don't have them anymore, but and they'd say, oh, send it to Claire Hobbs, and here is her email address. So this is, and that person doesn't exist.
But would someone look at them though? Not really. Not really,
no. And I think now,
not unless they're looking,
with the social media, you know, but should you have a show reel?
You don't need a show reel as such, because a show reel is something that's, you know, set in stone for that period of time, and then it's going to change because you're going to do something better. And then you have to change your show reel. What you need to do is have links to your MP3 or MP4 recordings. so that when you put yourself out there, you just have links to what you've done and people can see what you've done. Anybody who wants to go on television needs to be able to do two things: to be able to deliver a piece to camera like we are now, talk directly to the camera if you are the host, or more likely you're going to start as a guest, so you need to be interviewed. So get yourself interviewed and get that footage on a link so that you can publicize it. Just as I say, you know, use your imagination and all of your links and resources to get yourself in print or online as the expert, and soon you'll find that you will be more searchable.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anthony, my husband, actually does this for people for their website. So he will interview them, but then he cuts it so that it's a video about you. Yeah. But he, you know, and he makes you so if he says a question, it's like, how did you get into nutrition? Then you start your answer with, I got into nutrition by, and then, you know, that it's just a 1 minute clip or something, but it's so useful, I think, not just for if you want to get onto TV, but actually for people to get to know you and understand who you are and what your personality is like.
Perfect. And that's the sort of thing we were talking about earlier, which is you can practice doing these little pieces to camera at home, in your lounge, to your phone, and when you found one that you like, then you can upload it to your site. And you can practice interviewing people, or they can interview you, or you can ask Sandra's husband to video you, and then you'll have more material to start, you know, that ball rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you were to be lucky enough to be invited to a screen test, what happens then? What do you do?
Well, if it's a screen test where you are the host, you might be asked to remember some pieces to camera, little links, and then deliver them from memory, or to read them from an auto script, which is a scrolling screen, or to interview someone. And if it's a screen, you don't tend to screen test guests. Guests are brought in because they are known to be a good talker on that particular subject. So if you're going to be a guest, you'd probably be invited in because someone's had a phone conversation with you. But screen tests vary depending on what kind of show it is and what tasks you're going to be asked to do in that show. Whether it's a documentary on location or whether it's a multi-camera TV studio show. If you're interested, then have a look at my website where I've got lots of CityLit courses that I teach, and they are with 3 cameras and the in-ear talkback and the auto cue. In other words, it's what it's like being a real TV.
My absolute worst nightmare.
In a real TV studio or being a TV presenter. So screen tests tend to be for those people who are going to be the presenters rather than the experts.
Yes, yeah. So as in my previous life in TV, because I was the accountant or I was doing like the management side of things, I was always deemed to be the one that had time to go and do the run through, and it was horrific. Like I have this awful fear of going on stage now, and the lights are on, there's so many cameras, they're all facing you, and there's like 2 famous presenters and they're looking at you, and they would ask the most menial questions and I just could not remember.
I think you'd be better now because now you've got more broadcasting experience.
I suppose maybe if I was me, but yeah. And I also, have I told you, I cooked with Gordon Ramsay once, and I had to cook chips and with like hot fat, and I was cooking for his mum.
Oh, wow.
And he was swearing at me the whole time, asking me questions.
Yeah.
And I was like sweating, and I think I've got this absolute kind of almost like post-traumatic stress from that. Like
and you can't look at a chip in the face again.
No, but I just think the thought of several cameras and someone speaking in my ear and having to be focused.
I put it to you, it's a learned skill. If you were to come on a 2-day course, one of my 2-day courses, it's just a learned skill. You learn it like anything else. And then
it's not something that you're either good at or you're not particularly good at being.
No. How do you think all these people on television have learned how to do that? They're taught.
They just come. And so if I was to arrive at one of your groups and, you know, is everyone kind of in the same situation where they like really don't know how it works and how to?
Yeah, you start off with a beginner's course, and then there are other courses which lead up to an auditions course, which would be, as it were, the screen test.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about.
No. You start at the beginning.
Okay, that's been really useful. So I've got a couple of questions from the live audience.
Hello, live audience.
Julia says, what are your thoughts on reading from a script, and how do you make it so it doesn't look like you're reading from it?
Okay, so I don't know if you mean in a live event or if you mean when talking to a camera. I would say don't read from a script. I would encourage you to be confident enough that you know this subject matter backwards, and that all you really need is some bullet points on a card. Because if an audience wanted to, if an audience was watching you reading from a script, they might as well listen to you do a podcast or listen to the radio. Or have a phone conversation with you. They've come to see you, and I think you've got to look them in the eye, and that's very hard to do when your eye line is down reading a script. So I would say, start small with say 2 or 3 minute talks to a camera or to an imagined audience in your lounge, and build up until you feel more confident. Learn the beginning, learn the end, and just have bullet points for the middle. If you absolutely freak at that idea and you feel, no, I've got to have it all written out because otherwise I won't know what to say, then, if I imagine if this is my script here, have it in as close as possible to your eye line, not over there, and look at your audience whenever you possibly can. I'm now looking above the camera because I'm pretending to look at the audience, and then look down and get your place, and then look at the audience again. But keep looking at the audience, but of course that could slow things down. So I would encourage you to try and free yourself up from the script. It's a crutch that you don't need.
It's not very engaging either. It's quite, I find myself drifting off if someone's doing that. My thoughts are drifting if someone's reading from a script.
Yeah. I mean, you could take your cue from, I guess, really good speeches on television, let's say, politicians or whatever, who might have a script in front of them, and how many times they look up at the viewer and try to copy from the best, and try different things. Try to free yourself up from reading from the script, though. That is quite hard to do well.
I don't know. I mean, I studied a long time ago, but there was someone called Dr. Barry Peatfield who taught us about the thyroid, and he came and did a lecture, and I found it so interesting. The actual lecture itself was informative but quite boring, but then what we got afterwards was a booklet, and it was his speech, word for word. It was, and he had written it as if he was speaking it. And I thought that's why it was so boring, because I don't know if he's even around anymore, and nobody here has probably kind of studied that long ago now, but I found that's very interesting actually, how he had rehearsed it so much, and obviously he just says the same things all the time, so maybe he just found it easier.
He was speaking it.
I don't remember, but I remember it being quite dull.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
He was an old dinosaur even back then. So Carly's got a question saying, I've done a few conference talks in my past career, and I agree about looking at the audience in groups. The only problem was when I looked at someone who I felt looked bored or cynical or scary, then that put me off and sometimes got me flustered. How do you overcome this?
Oh dear, that's a shame. Well, I would say immediately move your gaze to the people who are more engaged and more interested. Sometimes you can't please all the people all the time, and you don't know what was going on in that person's own life at that point. He or she may have been thinking, oh gosh, I've got to leave here in 5 minutes and I don't know how to make an exit because I've got to go and collect my mother from the doctors, or you don't know why they were feeling like that or looking like that. This is again our inner critic. You're immediately taking it on yourself to think, oh, they're bored with me, I must be bad.
Yes.
That might not be the case at all. And so if there's one person in the audience who doesn't get it, that's fine. The rest of them, are going to get it. You could be very brave, and you could, again, a university lecturer would probably do this. You could ask that person, is there anything you'd like to ask me about this, and sort of try and get them back on board. But I would say the main thing is don't let that put you off, and just talk to those who are engaged. And, as I say, there may be other reasons.
I think some people can have a bit of a resting face that's a bit
Yes,
decisive anyway, because maybe they're just comfortable sitting like this.
Yeah. And it's our own imposter syndrome, thinking, oh no, he's
that's
bored.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
One final question.
Yeah.
What's the ideal length of a talk? So I guess that depends on what platform you're doing, but I can feel that we are now kind of, it's long enough. This is long enough. I think, we've been doing an hour now. I try to never go over an hour if I can help it in any presentation. What do you think?
Oh gosh, it so depends on the context. Again, it goes back to what we said at the very beginning. What is your aim? What is your purpose? Is it a 2-minute video that somebody's going to watch on their phone on a bus journey? Or is it a 10-minute section that you want to give people as they watch in their lunch break? Or have they made a big effort to come to hear you live, in which case you want to give them, let's say, half an hour or to 45 minutes and then 15 minutes of Q&A. There is no, it's how long is a piece of string? It's the context and the environment and the platform that you're on nowadays. So I can't say, but I do think that it's all about reading the audience as well. And managing expectations.
And not waffling or talking for the sake of it, just to keep it longer either. It's better to... I think that I find on Instagram, people's attention span is short. So, even if you're doing an IGTV, probably 10 minutes is the longest. That's my thoughts. My podcast, I try to keep to 45 minutes, maximum an hour, because, a commute is about that generally.
Exactly.
But it's... Depends.
Context. What platform? What audience? What are you aiming for?
Well, thank you so much for doing, agreeing to do this talk. And so, how can people find you if they want to come and see you, look you up?
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Well, it's been a pleasure. You can find me through my website, which is pukkapresenting.co.uk. And on there you'll find contact details to reach me. Also there's the open courses that I do at the City Lit, which is in a TV studio. Some of the courses are with 1 camera, some are with 3, some are with in-ear talkback, auto-cue, some are not at all. Some are for absolute beginners, some are for vloggers, people who want to just learn how to be more comfortable talking to a mobile phone. And the Actor Centre is again an open course, and you'll find details there, and my private tuition is also on the website. So that's the best place to find me. I use Twitter, LinkedIn quite a lot, and Instagram quite a lot, and
to show your books again.
Yeah, sure.
The TV Presenter's Handbook.
Yeah. There's this one.
Career Handbook. And so you want to be a TV presenter?
Yeah.
Or just a presenter.
And they are available online on Amazon, but I try to encourage people to go directly to the publishers, because Amazon take 52%.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
From the publisher, so it's no good for British publishers. So there's direct links on my website to buy the books directly from the publisher. But if you go on Amazon, you can read the 5-star reviews.
Great. I'm going to leave it to you to finish this in a very professional way.
Well,
you can show us.
What can I say? It's been a pleasure. Thank you for being with us. And if you have any queries about the Facebook Live, then please get in touch with Sandra. It's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.